Okay, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, and that is percent. And it's just one of these math concepts that, I just love to be able to respond to math students who are like, hey, when am I going to use this math? I'm learning all this crazy stuff, and I don't never see an application for it. Well, percent is everywhere. You're using percent probably on a daily basis. You don't even realize it. Okay, but anyways, percent is also one of these things that probably most of us understand it at a basic level. But when it gets into a little bit more interesting percent problems like this one here, 18% of what number is 3? Well, I wonder how many of you could do this problem right now with certainty, okay? Not like guess, but like, I think we do it this, and you produce some sort of number, but you're like, I hope that's right. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, could you, with certainty, give me the answer to a question like this? If you can't, no problem. Just stick around. I'm going to teach you. We're going to do a quick crash course on percent. But before we do that, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher, and over many years, I've constructed complete, full, comprehensive math courses. So if you're in need of a full math course online or some sort of supplemental material to help you out in your current math class, and you're desperately needing math help, then you want to check out my math program. I'll leave the link to that in the description of this video. Also, I have notes for pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, trigonometry. So right now I have those level notes, and I'm producing more. These are very, very in-depth, comprehensive notes. Okay, so if you don't have good notes, you need good notes. So you can pick up a pair of mine if you like. All right, so let's get into percent. Now I'm going to say one thing right off the bat. Okay, if you think you know percent, you're like, nah, I know percent pretty well, and you could do the problems that we're going to do here, and you could do them in your own way because percent could be kind of taught in different approaches. Okay, you're basically different paths are going to lead us to the same answer. So if your teacher way back in middle school, high school, whatever, taught you in a way that you understand and remember, then stick with that. Don't try to unlearn something that's working for you. Okay, so whatever approach, whether it's just by memory, or whatever, okay, stick with what's working. If you're getting the right answers, don't change how you learned percent. However, if you're completely lost and you never really learned it, then you want to stick around for the rest of this video. All right, so let's get into percent. So percent, okay, first of all, like what is it? What are we even talking about? Well, it's like a part out of a whole, right? Okay, so if I'm going to say $6 is what percent of $100? Well, it's $6 out of $100 obviously is going to be 6%, right? So we would represent it in that manner. So that's what the whole concept of percent is. It's basically a fraction out of 100, okay? But, we don't have to get all technical about it. We know that's representing, for the most part, um, some sort of kind of fraction, right? Now we're used to seeing percent like 6%, maybe like 99%, but then every so often we'll see something like 175% of something. You're like, oh, what does that mean? So if I was saying like 175 is how much out of 100, right? So we get into some other more advanced concepts about percent. So percent, it can really mess people up. uh, you know, the basic problems, hopefully you remember how to do, but the more interesting problems that still come into play, percent is there's more to it than just basic problems. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So let's get into it now. All right. So first thing is let's just understand that when I have percent, I can express it as a decimal. Okay. Or if I have a decimal, I can express it as a percent. Let's just stick with this 6%. So 6%, okay? How do we write 6% as a decimal? So I'm asking you, do you remember how to do that? Okay, so hopefully most of you are like, oh, that is 0.06. If you said 0.06, that is excellent, okay? So I'm going to talk to you about how we get from here to here. How do we write 60% as a decimal? Yeah, hopefully most of you said that's 0.6, and you would be correct on both. So how do we go from percent to decimal? We need to understand how to do this to do percent problems. Okay, so the way we do it, to get to a percent to a decimal, a couple different ways you can go about it, okay? You could take this value, let's go from 6%, okay? We could take 6%, we take the 6, and we just divide it by 100, all right? And when you do that, you're going to get 0.06. So that is kind of like the very common approach to do it. Just take your percent divided by 100, and you'll get your decimal. You could do it that way. But one way, and we're doing the same thing, is to move the decimal point over. So let's take a look at 6%. Okay, let me scroll down here. So 6%, where is the decimal point here? Okay, so let's just focus on the number 6. Okay, well 6 is the same thing as what? 6.0 or 6.00. Doesn't make a difference. 6.0, right? So the decimal point is right there. Okay, 6.0. So if you forget what the whole number, if I said 8, where's the decimal point? It's right there. We don't write it, okay, if I just write 6 by itself, but we need to be able to identify where is the location of the decimal point on something like this. Well, when we want to go from percent to decimal, we can scoot over that decimal point 2 places to the left, okay? So let's just write this down here, 6.0. If I go 2 places to the left, I'm going to go 1 and 2, and there you go. My decimal point is right there now, okay, at this location. So I got to plug in a 0, okay, as a placeholder. So that's 0.06. So I went from here to here, okay? This is effectively the same thing as dividing by 100, okay? So you can move the decimal point 2 places to the left. Now, I can really go into a lot about percent, percent of increase, etc. That's not the, I really want to just focus on the basic mechanics of basic foundational kind of concepts for percent, okay? So the first thing is we need to be able to write percent as a decimal, okay? So 60%, all right, let's just use what we just learned. That's 60.0. So I take this decimal, move it 2 to the left, 1, 2, boom, I end up with 0.6. Okay, so first things first. First thing is you need to know how to write percent to a decimal. And then obviously, if I want to go from a decimal to percent, what would I do? Okay, well, if I went from percent to a decimal, I divided by 100. To go back in this direction, yes, you guessed it, you just multiply by 100. Okay, multiply 100 will get you back to percent. So if I wanted to know 0.06 represents what percent, multiply by 100, I get 6%. Or do what? Or I can move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, so let's just kind of review this here. So when I'm going to percent to decimal, I need to move the decimal point which way, right? So let's just review this here. So 6% to 0.06, I move it to the left, right? I'm going to move it 2 to the left. So just remember, make yourself a little thing, go to the left, boom. Now, if I want to go from decimal to percent, I'm going to move it, yes, you guessed it, 2 to the right. Ooh, that's a really bad placement. Boop, boop, okay? So anyways, first things first, we got to really understand percent to decimal, decimal to percent. So if you got this part down, okay, you're like, okay, I get that. All right, then we're ready to move on to the next steps. Okay, so let's look at some basic problems, okay? Let's start off with something like this. What is, let's say, I'm just making stuff up, 32% of 400. What is 32% of 400? So to find a percent of a number, okay, all we do is we change the number that's in, we change the percent into a decimal. That's step one. Okay, so we're going to go from percent to decimal, And remember, that's 32.0%. So when I go 2 places to the left, that's 0.32. Okay, and then my percent, I change it to a decimal, and I'm going to multiply by this value. All right, so let me get my trusty little calculator so we don't waste any time here. So 0.32 times 400 is 128. Okay, so 32% of 400 is 128. So just think about that, like 1/3 of 100, 128, it makes sense. So when you're doing percent problems, you should look at your answer and ask yourself, does my answer make sense? 32% is like what? Like close to 1/3, you know, of 1/3 of 400. That would be like 400 divided by 3. Okay, it, you know, uh, it's making, values make sense. I guess that's what I'm saying. What I said, and now I am what I am saying, because I see students who do something wrong, and they'll be like 32% of 400 is 0.092, right? They'll do something crazy with their calculator, and I'll be like, does that even make sense to you? Like just stand back and really get an appreciation for the concept of percent. So look at your answers and see if they pass the smell test, the real test. And is it realistic, right? All right, so this is how we find a percent of a number. We change the percent to a decimal, multiply by the number, bingo, we're done. Okay, so yeah, it's okay to use a calculator here as well. Okay, now let's kind of kind of mess around here with this problem. And I will say 128 is what percent of 400? Okay, so now this is by the definition, just um, the definition of percent. Okay, 128 is what percent of 400? So to do these kind of problems, this is the part. Okay, all right, this is the part, and I'm asking how much is the part out of the whole? Okay, how much is the part out of the whole? By definition, that is the percent. Okay, so let's go down here. 128 400. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go 128. That's the part out of the whole 400, and I'm gonna go into my trusty calculator, and I'm going to do what? I'm gonna go 128 divided by 400 is equal to 0.32. Okay, when you do this division, this is a decimal. Okay, so the question is asking in percent. This is another area where a lot of people mess up percent problems. They're like, oh, it's 0.32%. Though I'm telling you right now, if I did this as a little pop quiz, so many students would give me this answer. And I'd be like, oh man, I hate doing this, -5, sad face, the whole 9 yards. I'm like, no, 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 you're so close. You're so close. No, that's 0.32 is a decimal. We need to change our decimal into percent. And how do we do that? Remember, I multiply by 100, or I move the decimal point over to the right 2 times. Okay, so that's 32%. Remember, the question is asking, 128 is what percent, not 128 is what decimal. Okay, let's read the question. 128 is what percent of 400? So basic problems like this. Okay, so we have 32% or percent of a number. Okay, and then just the definition of percent. Now let's take on this original problem here, way up here. Let me scroll up here. 18% of what number is 3? Okay. 18% of what number is 3? 18% of what number is 3? Whoops, I got to write 3 down, right? Is 3. Now, here is where what I just covered, everyone should kind of know, been taught basically the same way. Now, how to manipulate these kind of other percent problems, this is where you might have memorized how to do this. Your teacher might have taught you one approach, one teacher might have taught you another approach. I teach a couple different approaches to this. I like to use algebra, basic algebra equations, okay? Basic algebra equations. If you understand these basic algebra equations for percent, you can do every single percent problem like nothing, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and think about this. 18% of what number? So I want to find 18% of some number. Let's say 18% of 400, right? What did I have to do? Well, remember, I changed that into a decimal, so that would be 0.18, and I would multiply by 400, right? So that's what I would have to do. I would change the percent into a decimal and multiply, okay? But here, my number, I don't know what number that is, okay? So that is going to be my lovely variable. So 18% of what number? Let's say x, okay? So 18% of x is 3. Now, in mathematics, when you see the word is, that means equal. Okay, so really this is saying 18% of x is or is equal to 3. Now, this is shaping up to be a nice basic algebra equation. So 18% of x, if I wanted to find 18% of x, okay, what would I have to do? It's no different than finding 18% of 400. Remember, I have to change this into a decimal. So this is going to be 0.18, and then I'm going to multiply by the number. Well, I don't know the number. Well, yeah, you do. It's just x, okay? I just know that this number x, whatever it represents, 0.18 times this mystery number x is equal to 3. Okay, so if you understand this basic equation setup, it's super easy now to solve for the answer, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides to solve for x here, right? I need to divide both sides by 0.18. 0.18. All right, so x is going to be equal to 3 divided by 0.18, and let me get my trusty calculator out here. So 3 divided by 0.18 is equal to 16.66 or so, right? So 16.6, let's round it up 7. 16.67. Now let's look at our answer, okay? Let's look at, this is what the answer is, 16.67. 18% of 3, okay? 18% of what number is 3, okay? So that was 16.67. That's what we got. Now, let's just check this. Let's find 18% of 16.67. All right, let's just check that and see if we get close to 3. So 0.18 times 16.67. Let's go into our calculator and do that. 0.18 times 16.67, and you get like 3.00006, something like that, right? So there you go. Now you can always check your work when you get your answer. You can go back and just double check it and make sure it's right. So these are a more interesting type of percent problems, but if you can build an equation, all right, and there's different type of examples and different, I don't want to make this video too much longer than it already is, but percent problems are very, very important. And there's percent of increase, like how much did something increase in percent? There's a lot to know about percent. And there's other approaches to solving percent problems as well. We can actually build something called proportions, all right, and that works out nice as well. But I just love using basic algebra. Basic algebra equations just, are awesome. But again, this you can't even do that unless you understand the fundamentals, like the real basic kind of problems, percent, for the concept of percent, right? Like percent of a number. This is real basic, 32% of 400. Got to know how to do that, all right? You got to learn how to walk before you can run. 128 is what percent of 400? We covered how to do that. And then obviously, knowing how to write percent as a decimal and a decimal as percent. These are like the super, super foundational topics to percent. Again, one of these topics I think people believe they know better than they actually do, all right? And it's so important. You got to know percent, just think about all the finances and stuff. We're always doing this in our, brain, like, hey, there's going to be a sale. It's 36% off this, but what if I got this discount? And anyways, on and on and on. I don't have to convince you that percent is important, but I will convince you that you may not know percent as strongly as you think you do. So hopefully this video helped you out. And if it did, please consider smashing that like button 100% if that's okay with you. And if you're new to my YouTube channel and like my teaching style, I have hundreds and hundreds of math videos that can help you out from various topics. I have more videos on percent, but middle and high school math, more advanced mathematics. I try to organize my stuff in playlist. Again, if you really would want my complete full course instruction, then you want to check out the descriptions and the links in the description of this video. You'll find the links to these various resources. But with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.